Cheers. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, good name in man and woman, dear my lord, is the immediate jewel of their souls. Who steals my purse, steals trash, 'tis something, nothing. 'Twas mine, 'tis his, and has been slave to thousands. But he that filches from me my good name, robs me of that which not enriches him, and makes me poor indeed. Here we have Iago trying to impress upon Othello the importance of a man's good name, his virtue, honour, his reputation. It has far more value, he suggests, than monetary wealth. This passionate plea is of course taken from the famous play Othello, written by Edward de Vere. De Vere was famous for many other great plays, including Hamlet, Macbeth, and The Tempest. And who could forget the lover's tragedy, Romeo and Juliet? Perhaps you're under the impression that these were the works of Shakespeare. Indeed they were. But the new film, Anonymous, contends that William Shakespeare of Stratford, a man respected as the greatest wordsmith the English language has ever known, was nothing but an amiable stooge, an actor who lent his name as cover for someone of greater talent, someone who cannot be publicly identified as the playwright. So what is it that drives people to question Shakespeare's authorship? Is there any truth behind these claims? And should we all forget what we thought we knew and instead pay tribute to another? It is Shakespeare's own good name that is at stake. And so today we're going to look at both sides of the debate and we'll come to a conclusion once and for all. Edward de Vere was the 17th Earl of Oxford. He's the subject of this new film and the man who many believe was the true author of the works of Shakespeare. Oxford was a respected poet and playwright in his youth, but in Elizabethan England, playwrights and actors were generally regarded with suspicion, looked down upon as unsavoury reprobates, and Oxford would have risked his reputation, his standing in high society, had he continued along this literary path. The suggestion is that he adopted the pseudonym William Shakespeare, which allowed him to continue working as a clandestine writer whilst maintaining an air of respectability that allowed him to pursue his other interests. Supporters of Oxford suggest that the man from Stratford was nothing to do with these works. They argue that Shakespeare's plays brim with expertise in so many areas: law, medicine, life at sea, statesmanship, court life, military affairs, antiquity, and life abroad, that they couldn't possibly be the work of a single, rightly educated provincial. Oxford himself was certainly a well-educated man, and, as a favourite of Queen Elizabeth, he also had the requisite knowledge of court life. He had travelled extensively throughout France and Italy, visiting many of the cities referenced in Shakespeare's plays. On the other hand, there is no mention of the Stratford man ever leaving these shores. But the truth is that William Shakespeare's father was the mayor of Stratford, a town of some consequence that boasted a fine grammar school, one which Will most likely attended. And so we can see his education was not too shabby. He may not have been a regular in court or well travelled, but perhaps the Oxfordians are underestimating the power of imagination. Another argument put forward is that there are many parallels between events in Oxford's life and situations that arise in Shakespeare's plays. They also contend that letters written by Oxford show parallels of thought and indeed language that are reflected in the works of Shakespeare. But Stratfordians would question whether it is sound to read so much into these works, to see them as autobiographical. Are we not just clutching at straws because so little is known of William Shakespeare? They also point out that whilst Oxford's surviving poetry has some merit, it does not indicate a developing greatness. Certainly not a Shakespearean greatness. The biggest problem with Oxford's claim, though, is that he had the great misfortune of being dead by the time that many of the plays were written. His supporters say that the accepted dates of publication must be wrong, or he must have left plays behind to be released after his death. He must have, because otherwise we have to conclude that Oxford simply didn't write them. So now we must reach our verdict. We've heard the impassioned plea from Iago, a character from Shakespeare's own imagination, on the importance of a man's good name. So we must get this right. An incredible legacy is at stake. The one thing that ties together all the conspiracy theories is the conviction that William Shakespeare was in some way unsatisfactory as an author of brilliant plays. I hope today that I've shown you that that is simply not the case. Either way, Shakespeare would not be unique in rising from modest circumstances to excel later in life. No, I put it to you that there are two motives driving his detractors. The first is outdated, ugly snobbery. The idea that a provincial man without a university education couldn't possibly have given to the world prose of such breathtaking beauty that the works must be those of an aristocrat. And the second is a niggling sense of enigma. The lack of surviving documents written in William Shakespeare's own hand frustrates us. We want to know more, to get closer to this great man. Charles Dickens once said of Shakespeare, "It is a great comfort that so little is known concerning the poet. The life of William Shakespeare is a fine mystery, and I tremble every day lest something should turn up." If only we could all take a leaf out of Dickens' book and celebrate the man for the genius that he was, however elusive, then William Shakespeare's good name would be safeguarded forever.